All right, everyone. Welcome into another late night edition of the Voice of College Football. We appreciate you stopping by. You know the deal. Comments and questions are welcome. Of course, we're here for at least an hour for you, maybe longer. It was 4 hours last night. Thank you for the contributions. We thank you so much for all of that. We're going to get it cranked up here with some CFP talk. So the controversies are over. We know the teams that are in the fold that have been selected, and we can certainly continue to discuss and debate that if you would like with your calls a little bit later in the show. But as it stands right now, we got Brad Tejeda stopping by to break down some Miami football for us. Brad, what's going on?
What's going on, Mark? How you doing, man? Good to
I'm doing
stop
well.
by
Good
and
to see you.
talk some Canes football. How are you?
For sure. Let's do it. So, if I would have had you on at this time last week, I think we would have had a much different conversation because I'm guessing you were expecting the worst.
No, absolutely. I think you hit it right on the head, Mark. When you look at kind of how the college football playoff picture kind of played out the last few weeks, going all the way back to us losing that SMU game, I think the college football playoff committee kind of wrote us off, kind of assumed, hey, this was going to be the same Miami team. There's probably going to be one, if not two more in conference games we were probably going to fall into. And as that season progressed, you talk about the turning point of this football season. Mario, first of all, talked about it in several interviews the past week or so. And it was a very different approach to what you're kind of used to hearing and seeing as a Miami fan and what you would expect from a guy like Mario Cristobal, who's kind of hard nosed, get it, grind out, looking at the very in particular details and making sure we knock those things out, right? But instead, the turning point was getting everybody in a room and essentially just putting on 15 and 20 minutes worth of highlight films of just everything positive that the team has done and gone through after that loss of SMU. And just kind of a reflection, looking yourself in the mirror, not really at the disappointments and at the bad things you did throughout the season, but the good things. And that meeting alone is kind of what made a turn to what we're getting into now with the college football playoff, where the last 2 weeks it was a crazy fiasco. It seemed like everything that needed to go Miami's way up until last week didn't go their way, right? You talk about the 5, 6 different scenarios for us to get in the ACC championship to at least feel confident we would at least have a chance in the playoff. Almost everything went our way except Virginia Tech upsetting Virginia, which in the past, if you look at that rivalry and kind of the nuance, Virginia Tech is a team that isn't used to not beating Virginia in those particulars, in
It's almost
particular.
automatic. 19 and
Correct.
1.
Right. Yeah, 19 and 1. So I was like, all right, I think Miami might have a shot at this. And instead we didn't. And it went right back to the committee getting into that final week this past weekend. Were they going to make the right decision? Right. And I think a lot of fans like myself, we were in this predicament where if they were going to make the right decision, they should have made it weeks ago, right? Not this past week. But when you look at the realm of things, we are the University of Miami. We are a big time program. Our logo does indeed hold weight, as we saw after the committee made their right decision. But at the end of the day, it's like anything in life or any TV show you watch, right? You're not gonna watch a TV show and see the main character of the show die two episodes in, right? You're gonna wait till the end of the season to see that, right? And I think the committee kind of did something very similar. They weren't gonna put Miami above Notre Dame with 2 or 3 weeks left to go, right? No, they needed the viewership, right? They needed the eyes, they needed the clicks, they needed to make sure that people were engaged week in and week out. And as we know, the University of Miami has the best viewership in all of college football, and we've been able to show that each and every year with some of the big time matchups we've been able to do this year.
The best viewership in college football? Okay. We
When
may
you when you
we
look at
may save
when
that
you
for another debate at some other time.
when you look at the viewership this year, Mark, We have had two of the top three highest viewership of all of college football this year.
Okay. But we know that Miami does not get viewed by more people than any
I'm
university
talking.
in the country.
I'm talking about from this year in particular. We get the most viewership from a TV standpoint. I
In
get the
the
jokes
ACC,
about
maybe.
no, no, no. All of college football. Look it up. All of college football. We had two of the top three highest viewership ratings, and Notre Dame and Miami was the second highest rating of all of college football.
I do believe Ohio State, Michigan was number one by a wide margin, as it typically is. And I think Ohio State, Texas was either two or three. So there's
They were
anyway,
number three.
I'm not going to drag you through it, but I guarantee you that there are at least five schools that have better, if you take the entirety of the schedule, per game numbers than Miami.
Hey, I mean, you could probably make that point, but at the same time, we're talking about a private university that
Sure.
gets joked around all
I'm
the time for not filling up their stadium, right? So
yeah, I'm just
it's a nuance, right? It's like we don't fill up our stadium, but yet everybody's watching us. So
I'm just choosing to push back on that one. But I'm
for
not
sure,
trying
for
to I'm
sure.
not trying to create a debate here. But yeah, I break down the TV ratings as I will this offseason. I look at them top to bottom, every single game in the country, and make all sorts of lists and top tens and break down every conference and the whole deal. So it's kind of something I do. All right, we got Brad Tejeda here to talk Miami football. So all of that in the rearview mirror because the committee for weeks after weeks after weeks, if you believe in head to head, which most people should, it's football, was making the wrong decision. But as you say, they corrected a wrong right at the finish line. So all is well. Miami's in a game against Texas A&M in the first round of the playoff. It's interesting that these two teams got together just a few years ago in back-to-back games, home and home. Texas A&M winning at home, Miami winning at home. Obviously, different cast of characters now, other than Mario Cristobal on the sideline for Miami. What are your initial thoughts about the matchup?
I mean, when you look at the initial in the matchup, I think first and foremost, you're going into probably one of the most toughest environments of all of college football, right? Probably between Texas A&M and Death Valley up in LSU. Those are probably two of the most rocking stadiums every year in college football. I think the one thing that you're really looking at in this in particular case is going to be, can Carson Beck be able to play like Carson Beck and not go back into the turnover machine of what some of us believe Carson Beck was prior to the University of Miami, right? And I think on the flip side, you have an electric, dynamic quarterback that Texas A&M has, who's should be up in New York right now, but he's not. But at the same time, as much as electric plays that he makes, he does turn over the ball at times. He is a quarterback that could get rattled at times. I think it's gonna come down to limiting the big plays on both sides of the football. I think this is one of those games very similar to a couple years ago out in College Station when we played them, where both teams have some dynamic players. I know us Miami fans talk about Malachi Tony. Texas A&M has some dynamic guys as well, and it's going to be tough to tackle those guys in space and be able to limit those big play opportunities. At the end of the day, though, Texas A&M is not good at stopping the run. And when you look at Miami and their bread and butter and kind of what Mario Cristobal and his staff likes to harp in on and kind of go into a game plan of saying, "Hey, can you stop us?" It goes back to the run, right? So I think Miami is going to try to test that early on and see if Texas A&M can stop the run. I expect it to be a very close game. Something I tweeted out earlier was Texas A&M when hosting College Game Day, which I believe they will be getting hosted. I believe they've already announced it's back-to-back Friday and Saturday. They'll be doing College Game Day at College Station. They're 1-10 in hosting College Game Day at Texas A&M College Station. So big time stat to look out for. In all of those 9 losses, they've lost by 7 or less points every single time. So it's very close ball games every single time. So I expect it to be a close one, something like 27-21, 24-17, something along those lines. Hoping the Canes get out a victory. I'll be out there in College Station. But I'm expecting a big time matchup. I think this this team is super excited and ready. When you look at some of the reactions of some of the players, and even Mario Cristobal this whole week, going on his media tour of harping on why we deserve to get in that spot over Notre Dame. I think this team and these players are taking this very serious, and I expect a very close one.
Yeah, when I look at this Miami team, Brad, certainly correct me because you are all over the team. I just, I watch most of the games, but there doesn't seem to be the obvious weakness that there have been in other years. Now, last year was just simply offense and defense. Offense, a huge strength, arguably the best in the country. The defense, not, although the defensive line obviously had some big playmakers. In the past, there's always been a positional unit or two that were definitely drawbacks. This team seems to be complete. Obviously, they had areas where they, like you say, turned it over in their two losses, but every position, starting offensive line, is strong on both sides of the ball. Like they don't have a weak link for the first time in probably since the near the end of their dynasty period, 04, 05 in that range.
Yeah, I mean, if you compare PFF, any type of stats, or just looking at, the blue chip ratio or just the roster breakdown in general between these two teams, they're very similar in almost every position. Again, I think this team, where you look at their defense, in particular, and what Corey Heatherman has been able to do, we're limiting teams to just under 18 points a game, which I believe is like top 12 in the country. Texas A&M is also doing a pretty good job at limiting points as well. I believe they're in the top 25 or top 30. But again, it goes back to 7 to 4 point difference. That's the average of the difference between the two, and it goes back to those little mistakes that could cost a football game. And I think one thing that's helped Texas A&M this whole year has been they've been very good at creating turnovers. With Miami, for the most part, when we are winning football games, we're doing the opposite and limiting the turnovers. And a guy like Ruben Bain, who actually didn't play in College Station when we played Texas A&M, this will be a fun one for someone like him, along with some of these transfer portal guys that have been huge impact players for this team, whether it's on offense or defense. You talk about a guy like Jacoby Thomas, who we got from Tennessee, who's been in big time games, similar to a College Station, right, playing at Tennessee. And some of these other defensive linemen, linebackers, and corners that we got, they've played in big time games. And then, of course, the number one position in college football is quarterback, right? When you go into a college football playoff, first time in both program history for Texas A&M and Miami to be in the CFP playoffs, right? You want to make sure you have a quarterback that understands those situations, been in those type of environments. And luckily for us, we got a guy like Carson Beck that has been in there. I'm looking forward to seeing what a guy like Shannon Dawson does and draws up during this game plan.
So, Brad, the recruiting class obviously just came together here this past Wednesday. Your thoughts about the recruiting class that snuck into the top 10, got some really key guys under the wire. I think it's a pretty strong class in regards to numbers, around 30. So just your thoughts and any interesting stories or highlights in terms of guys that you really like out of this class.
Yeah, I mean, between the transfer portal, guys going in and out, and then just the competition within every program, you're going to have a handful of guys that fan bases don't expect to lead the program and end up leaving just because they're not getting to play. So that just means you're going to have to go in to the transfer portal and bring in more guys or up your recruiting. And that's kind of what we did this year, bringing in 30 guys compared to the last 3 or 4 cycles under Mario Cristobal. And that just goes to show you, it goes right back to the type of evaluations that we're doing. I mean, you look at some of the impact guys on our team this year. I believe we had 10 or 11 true freshmen that have made quality snaps for the University of Miami this year, which was one of the top in all of college football, just like last year as well. Um, when you ask about specific recruits, I think one name in particular that pops up is a young man out of Kansas, JJ Dunnigan. When you turn on his tape, this is a lethal secondary guy and a guy that can also play at wide receivers. Got good ball hands. Anytime a ball's in the air, he's going out and grabbing it. He can play the rover. He can play safety. He can play corner. If I had to compare him to somebody, from a college standpoint, someone like a Jalen Ramsey, when he played over at Florida State, I would compare him to someone like JJ Dunnigan, that type of skill set, that type of range. And then you also got, some of the other guys on the offense side of the ball, someone like Maxwell, who's obviously, or I'm sorry, Jackson Cantwell, who's the number one recruit in the nation, who's the obvious guy that stands out right on the paper. But Darion Coleman, who's one of my favorites, someone who I've been following for about 2 or 3 years now, right here in our backyard in Orlando. Um, Underrated quarterback. He's a winner. Only threw one interception this whole football season, taking his team to back-to-back state. I think this guy's a true testament to someone that you want in the program, that you want to develop. I know Miami fans have been harping on, let's finally get a high school recruit that we can develop and not get into the transfer portal. I think a kid in Darion Coleman will be one that will be able to plant our toes in and really be able to see the growth and development of a young kid like him. And I think within a year, he'll be the starter.
Brad, good to see you. Thanks for dropping by. I want to make sure that I get your affiliation correct, since we haven't talked for a long time and I just didn't want to screw anything up. So just let people know where they can find you and what you got going on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You can find me at my Twitter handle at Tejeda Brad right there at the bottom. I'll be doing some stuff out in College Station here in the next week for Miami Hurricane fans. Setting up a nice event where we can hang out day before the game. So stay tuned, be on the lookout for that, and I'll be dropping some more information and stats throughout the week. But I
That
appreciate
is
you
awesome.
having me as always, Mark.
Thank you, Brad. Good to see you. Take care, man. And congratulations on the playoff berth. That's awesome.
Thank you. You as well. Go Canes.
Thanks. Brad Tejeda has been good to us for a long time here at the Voice of College Football. And again, Brad on his own producing content. So check out what he's got available. We are going to keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football. So we got 2 callers on the line. I'm going to grab those calls right now after the super chat. But keep in mind that I do have another guest. I don't know when he's going to show up, but I want to pave the way for him as well. Super chat coming in from Adam. Thank you so much for being here, Adam. As always, Mark, the playoffs should be 4 teams: Indiana, Ohio State, Georgia, Texas Tech. The remaining teams are pretenders, akin to Elvis impersonators. Well, let's not go that far. The man who cannot be impersonated actually has more impersonators than anyone in history. But I got your point there. A nod at the tip of the cap there. The vile ex-fiance or Vermont Democrats. We don't need 12 teams. Adam getting more and more vicious and creative at the same time with his super chats here recently. Thank you so much for that. Adam, I will say this. It's easy to say when the season's over that these are the 4 teams that should be in the playoff and we should only have a 4-team playoff. But what if there were like 6? Like, I get that distinction too, although Oregon was 11-1 as well, just like Ohio State was 11-1 in the regular season. So it would be kind of a shame to leave out Oregon. Ole Miss only lost 1 game, similar to Georgia. Now, they did lose to Georgia, so you could make a tiebreaker out of that. But I see the 4-team playoff, but I think Oregon in that case would be getting a bit ripped off in particular. But hey, those 4 teams are in the playoff, so they can all win it still. So why not watch more football is what I was trying to say there. All right, we got Keith stopping by. We appreciate Keith being here. Keith, what's going on?
Hey, yeah, your guest was Brad, did you say?
Yes.
Yeah. We were talking about Super League last year.
Yes.
And I did the Super League. I did my own format for the Super League. I mailed you a copy of it. I don't know if you remember, but I went to mediasources.com, I think it was. It was something like that. And it had all the teams in their viewership listing. And you know what number Miami was in the list for calendar year 2023?
I would say number 14.
31.
31. Yes.
Yeah.
I knew that Brad, I know he's a big Miami fan and that's his team and all that, but I wasn't going to like just jump all over him, but I could not let that slide. There's no comparison between the University of Miami's viewership and Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame, Alabama, Georgia. We could go on. Texas. They're not even number one all the time in the ACC. And while you're saying that, we'll just do one of these, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing here, but I do a breakdown of TV ratings at the end of every season, and I do them very explicitly, like break down every conference, every team, every week, everything. So right there, well, we'll just take Michigan, for example, since it's your team, Keith. Well, that's over 18 million people in the Ohio State game, and Miami got a little over 2 million against Pitt. So there's 18-2 right there. And we could do this throughout the season. Michigan's second to last game, I believe, was against Maryland. Where's that game? I think I might have missed it. The second to last game of the season. Was that a Big Ten Network game? I don't know why that's not listed. They got more numbers than that.
It was on the Big Ten Network. You're right. It was on the Big Ten Network.
Still should be. Those were always listed before. Anyway, I'm not going to go through it, but it's not even close. So I don't know what I think he was wrapped up in the other point I would make, Keith. We don't have to talk TV ratings all night, even though I could. Is that there's a difference when, for example, whether it's the Ohio State Michigan game, the Ohio State Texas game, the Michigan Oklahoma game, those games all had competition, meaning they were being played on a network. Let's say on Fox, and there were still games on ABC, ESPN, ESPN2, ESPNU, the SEC network, the AC. There's like 7 or 8 games, FS1. All of those games had a ton of competition. Notre Dame and Miami played by itself on a Sunday night. No other games on. So anybody watching college football had to watch Notre Dame and Miami. That's not a fair comparison to make.
Right. And Michigan, Maryland, I think, was up against a really big game. Like, I can't remember which one, but it had a real big competitor. Yeah. So
I can't figure out why that game's not on here. Anyway, go right ahead.
Yeah. So, and I saw one other thing, that average viewers for the whole year, and it looked like the SEC passed up the Big Ten. I thought Michigan and Ohio State led that the last 5 years or so. Average per week. Did you ever track that?
Well, again, I do all of that in the off season. So I will catch up with all of that. I'll do a whole breakdown looking at every week, every team, every conference, all of that. But I have not done that yet. But I have seen a few listings here and there of like the top 10 games or the top 20 games. And it was pretty heavy SEC.
Yeah, the SEC, it looked like Bama and Georgia were at the top, like average 7 million or 6 million for the year. Maybe that was 1 week I was seeing.
No, that was probably an average.
That was probably an average, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I thought Michigan and Ohio State led that in the past, but we might not have been comparing those statistics. I don't know.
Ohio State and Michigan still had the number one audience in college football for the season. Absolutely, it's not even close. Ohio State, Michigan had almost 19 million viewers, and the next game is at like 12 or 13 million.
Okay, yeah. I don't know why those SEC numbers. Maybe they were just tracking SEC games, because they sure don't get the viewers when they play Robert Morris and Citadel.
Well, Keith, they don't play well. We won't go into that. The Big Ten obviously does play one more conference game, so there is more drag on the SEC numbers from playing that extra either Group of Five or FCS team. However, the SEC also does play more big non-conference games than the Big Ten does.
Yeah, yes, but do they?
You're going to argue with me, aren't you, Keith? Do you really want to do this?
I would say Texas is the #1 school in the country for scheduling non-conference games.
Why do you say that?
Is because they take everybody. They'll take anybody, anywhere, anytime. They look for the teams that are running the national championships and play them the next year. They played us 24 the year after we won the Natty. They played you 25 the year after you won the Natty.
Well, Keith, that's a complete coincidence. They didn't schedule the games in the off season after the national championship game. Those games have been scheduled for years.
Yeah, but that goes more to their credit. If those games were scheduled in 20 and 21, then Michigan and Ohio State were both top 5 in the country then.
Sure. No, I agree with you. I'm not arguing with you, but I don't know why you picked out Texas. There are other schools, not a lot of schools, but
right.
I think aside from a couple years where Michigan inexplicably didn't schedule anyone, and last year Ohio State did. Ohio State's excuse was, and I think it's valid. Washington was on their schedule last year, but then they joined the Big Ten, so they had to wipe them off the non-conference. But anyway,
but they had the option.
Ohio State and Michigan are dodging anyone.
I'm going to argue there too. They still could have played them and played it as a non-conference game. That they're doing that these days.
I understand that, but they're not doing that traveling to the West Coast multiple times. Like they already had to go to Oregon for a West Coast trip. Right.
But yeah, anyways, but who has Alabama and Georgia played for the last 3 years in the Big Ten and their non-conference games?
Well, over like the last 10 years, Alabama's played Wisconsin multiple times. They've played Clemson in non-conference play. Alabama, I used to have this lined up in my brain a little bit better than I do now. They've played Louisville. They've played Duke. They've played non-conference Florida State a few times. They've played Miami.
I'll give them credit. I'd give them credit for Florida State and Miami, and not so much for Wisconsin and.
Why?
Because Wisconsin, it hasn't been a power for a decade.
They played Wisconsin in 2015 when they were about as good as you would expect Wisconsin to be, and they played them the last 2 years. But again, those games were scheduled 5 to 10 years in advance. Alabama, I don't have an issue with what Alabama's done non-conference scheduling. They always schedule somebody. They had Texas back to back when Texas was in the Big 12 before they entered the SEC. They played them in 2022 and 23. They played USC in 2016. They played all sorts of teams. The knock I have on Alabama is that during the Nick Saban era, they didn't play on-campus games on the road. Now, to their credit, they also didn't play these teams at home. They always just played in these NFL stadiums for all these non-conference games. All the non-conference games I just mentioned to you, Keith, Alabama played at a neutral site in Houston or New Orleans or Atlanta, which I don't care for.
Yeah, they played Michigan 1 year at Jerry World, I remember.
2012. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just that it seems to me that Alabama and Georgia and the other SEC teams look to play mid teams out of conference, not elite teams like Texas does.
All right. Well, Georgia, number one, Keith, they always play Georgia Tech. So obviously they can't control how good Georgia Tech is, which is usually a mid team, 7 and 5. But that's their rival, so that's who they play. But they usually, not always, they didn't this year, So shame on them. They didn't this year, but they usually tack on somebody else. So in the last 10 or 12 years, they've played Clemson a number of times. They've played Oregon. Georgia. Who else have they played? North Carolina comes to mind.
North Carolina's mid, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, half of them are mid and half of them are good.
Man, my memory used to be better than it is, Keith, but because I used to just be able to rattle these schedules off. But I'll cheat and go to Phil Steele because he's got
Okay.
like the last 5 or 6 years right
Yeah.
here. Alabama. So throw out 2020 because everybody just played conference games. In 2021, Alabama played Miami. In 22, they played Texas. In 23, Texas. 24 was Wisconsin. And of course, 25 was Wisconsin. Georgia.
So that was 3 good ones and 2 mids. Okay.
Well, again, when
Would
they scheduled Wisconsin, they didn't schedule Luke Fickell's Wisconsin team.
that would have had to been 10 to 15 years ago that Wisconsin was last good.
They went to the Rose Bowl in 2019.
Okay.
That wasn't that long ago.
Oh, that
Anyway,
was the COVID year. That
no,
year
it was not the COVID year.
20 was COVID.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. Georgia in the last 5 seasons outside the conference, in addition to Georgia Tech now,
Right.
Clemson, Oregon, nobody, and no, I'm sorry, Clemson last year, then nobody this year.
Yeah, well, Clemson and Oregon are good. So Georgia is, although they're only doing it every other year.
But they also have Georgia Tech they've got to play.
And they have Georgia Tech, but Georgia Tech's been mid until last year.
I understand that, but nobody in the Big Ten does what Georgia, Florida, Kentucky, and South Carolina do, and that's play a rival outside the conference in the ACC, and then usually also schedule another game.
I agree that we should play more inter-conference games between the Big Ten and the SEC. I like whoever proposed that all the first place teams, so Indiana would play Georgia and the other first place teams from the other divisions, and then go down the list. You know that proposal?
I like it for entertainment purposes. I don't like it if you're trying to build an equitable schedule. That's not how you build an equitable schedule. But I get the entertainment side of it. Yeah, you want to see the best teams play.
Yeah. Well,
I totally get that.
Yeah, Indiana and Georgia, unfortunately, one of them would lose a non-conference game in that thing, and that's a fact. That would be a fact of finishing first. But they would have 2 easier games against the first place in the ACC, and Big 12 might be close to a mid game rather than a very good game.
And you're talking about going straight down the line in the standings, like Ohio
Right.
State would play
Straight lines, yeah.
Alabama, and
Michigan be playing 5th place in the SEC next year. They play the 5th place SEC, ACC, and Big 12.
Yep.
For their non-conference games, and nobody plays Robert Morris or Central Michigan or Bowling Green.
Well, you're going to have to play those kind of games. Otherwise, you're going to beat these teams up. They can't play 12 juggernauts and then go into a conference championship game and then go into a playoff without a breather.
But actually, they're playing somebody to their level. I guess that's a full plate then. Yeah, I guess it's kind of a full plate. But you're playing somebody to your level. But every game would be interesting. Would be way more interesting.
Yeah. I don't have to go out there and get beat up playing those games. But yeah, if it was a video game, I'm all for it. Keith, I got to let you go.
All right.
You can certainly call back anytime.
All right. Good talking to you.
Thanks, man. Let's get our guy Steve Helwick on here to break down the two Group of 5 playoff teams. Steve, thanks for your patience. I didn't see you there for a minute.
Mhm.
How's it going?
I'm doing pretty well. Thanks for having me on. Great championship weekend. Those CUSA, ACC, and Big Ten games really delivered. I mean, we had a few duds, but 3 excellent thrillers to set us up for the postseason right here.
You can catch Steve's work at Hustle Belt, also Underdog Dynasty there on SB Nation, and you can see his X handle right there. Well, let's get to it. People don't want to see, generally don't want to see James Madison in a playoff. They're a 3-touchdown underdog going to Autzen Stadium to take on Oregon. Alonzo Barnett, I've not seen him really play. 21 touchdowns, 8 picks. He's rushed for 14 touchdowns. What are your thoughts about James Madison's ability to try to score on the Oregon defense?
That Oregon defense is really good. I mean, you look at that front, there's just all Big Ten talent across that. It's as good as a front, maybe other than Oklahoma, that we see in the country right now. I mean, those edge rushers there with you have Mateo Uiagalelei and you have Tatum Tuioti. They like those are legitimate pass rushers. And the defensive tackle talent with Bear Alexander there, Amari Washington, like that is a scary unit to run on. And that's what James Madison likes to do. They like to run the ball. It's a very slow-paced offense. I mean, a lot of teams are up tempo these days. James Madison kind of likes to slow it down and run more of a traditional power running style with Wayne Knight, their explosive running back, who you saw get the 70-yard touchdown, over 200 yards in that Sun Belt championship against Troy. And that's kind of this team's identity. So James Madison is going to try to run right at this Oregon team and see what they can get there. And Alonzo Barnett, he's a mobile quarterback. He's a scrambler. So he's going to also be James Madison's number 2 runner trying to get some yards on these Oregon Ducks. Not too much of a passing team. Barnett this year only had one 300-yard game, I think. That was 303 yards against App State. So this is a team that's really going to try to get things done through the ground, and it's going to be a tough uphill battle that they have against this Oregon front.
Yeah, Knight also caught 37 balls out of the backfield, 1,200 yards rushing, 6.6 per carry, 9 touchdowns, a couple wide receivers who did some damage, including Landon Ellis. I see that the big defensive playmaker for James Madison, Sahir West, 14 TFL, 7 sacks. How is James Madison held up? Obviously, everyone tends to gravitate to that Louisville game just as the one example of a Power 5 matchup. And I believe they were only down like 20-14 in the fourth quarter in that game.
Yeah, it was 14-14 entering the fourth quarter of that game. And I came away super impressed with that James Madison defense throughout that entire game. I mean, one of Louisville's touchdowns was a scoop and score for its defense. So James Madison only gave up 21 points in that game. And 2 of those were really explosive touchdowns. One was a 60-something yard touchdown by Louisville star receiver Chris Bell. Another was a 78-yard run, I believe, by their star running back Isaac Brown. So Louisville's got those explosive skill position players that got that done. But Louisville couldn't really sustain drives on that James Madison team. That was just because the front was eating at them. James Madison had 3 sacks in that game. They kind of kept Miller Moss very bottled up in the pocket, held him to negative rushing yards in that contest there. And James Madison held Louisville entirely out of the end zone in the first half, up 14-6 at the break. So I thought James Madison's defense really showed its mettle in that game against a solid Louisville team going in there. I mean, I remember tweeting probably early in the game, like, I'm trying to see if I could have pulled the tweet up with my take. Yeah. 7:34 p.m. on September 5th, I said, walking away super impressed with his James Madison defense after 2 quarters. One reason I had them as a CFP team in the preseason, held Louisville entirely out of the end zone for a half on the road. And I think that defense held up the entire season like that. And their top 10 in pass defense, top 10 in run defense. Their defense has really shut down a lot of opponents this year. And then you mentioned Sahir West. He was the guy that made the game ceiling play against Troy, coming in with that speed for that strip sack around the end and getting that scoop and score touchdown. So James Madison's defense, that's the unit. They're going to, if they want to beat Oregon, it's going to have to be one of those lower scoring games, kind of like that Wisconsin-Oregon game a few weeks ago, probably, last week of October, that Wisconsin-Oregon game. You're going to have to see James Madison's front really establish their will on Oregon and make this a lower scoring game for the Dukes to win.
Got Steve Helwick on the line, SB Nation's Underdog Dynasty and Hustle Belt breaking down the group of 5 effort in the college football playoff. Of course, James Madison, a huge underdog against Oregon. Any last news or notes on James Madison that could be interesting in this one, or that could lean their way toward doing what nobody thinks they can do?
I don't know. I mean, James Madison's played some good football throughout the year. It's not like they went 12-1 and had a lot of close calls. I mean, other than the Louisville game, there was the only 2 games that they looked like there was a potential of them to lose was the Washington State game in late November where they won 24-20, and then that Marshall game, they got a late touchdown to win 35-23, but Marshall was driving down 28-23 in the final 5 minutes of that one. So James Madison, they had 12 wins this year, 2 wins by 1 score, 2 wins by 2 score. Everything else was a complete blowout. And their best win, who's the second best team in the Sun Belt, it was a down year for the Sun Belt in general, but their best win was beating Old Dominion, a 9-3 team, 63-27. That was the Old Dominion team where Virginia Tech didn't even belong on the same field as them when they played. So that's James Madison's best win to date. So they've been pretty dominant all season. And I think one other note that is really important for this game is in that Louisville game where they lost 28-14, they didn't even play Alonzo Barnett that much. They were still testing a 2-quarterback system at that point with Matthew Sluka, the UNLV transfer who made a lot of national headlines with the NIL last year. And Matthew Sluka, they were trying to do more of a run-oriented system with him, and it didn't really work that well. So ever since they've leaned to Barnett as a starter, they're undefeated this year.
Tulane getting a little bit more respect from the nation as a team that could possibly challenge Ole Miss, even though the two got together, of course, this season, 45-10, the final in Oxford. This is another rematch in the first round, as we also will see Alabama and Oklahoma play. Tulane, the class of the American, in a very tightly bunched race for the championship. The American Conference, folks, as we mentioned here from time to time, played extremely well against the power conferences this year. 6-13, of course, Tulane against Ole Miss, but also had a win against Northwestern and one against Duke, the ACC champion. Jake Retzlaff, our buddy from BYU, of course, the transfer, that controversy there, 62%, 14 TDs, 6 picks, ran for 16 touchdowns.
Yeah, Jake Retzlaff at the beginning of the year was really their whole offense kind of as a runner. And what's interesting is he had 110-yard rushing games against Northwestern and Duke. Then he never crossed 70 the rest of the year as Tulane kind of shifted its offensive scheme. They weren't calling as nearly many design runs for him, but he was still capable of running in the end zone when possible. He got 2 in the conference championship right there, but that wasn't their whole offense anymore. After the first few weeks of the season, Tulane kind of settled in. They tried to find that feature running back. Like they had the Mekhi Hughes and Tyjae Spears the past few years, who the last 3 years, they had a top 10 rusher in the country. This year, it took Tulane until mid-November really to find who that number 1 running back was, and that's redshirt freshman Jamari McClure. They didn't have a 100-yard rusher all season, and then McClure does it in, 2 of the last 3 games, 2 of the last 4 games of the season. And he's really come on. So I think it really helps Tulane that they finally found that running back. They didn't really have that in the Ole Miss game the first time they played this year. But one other thing that Tulane still is looking for is really a consistent passing game. Tulane this year, they didn't have the star skill position talent that we've seen from a few Tulane teams in years past with the Tyjae Spears or the Jaquan Jacksons. But why this Tulane team was so good this year in 11-2 was what they did in the trenches. North Texas, they were all skill position. I mean, they had a better offensive line than normal, but they were so good in the skill positions and all of that and the explosive plays. But Tulane just manhandled them in the trenches on Friday night, and it showed on both sides of the ball. They were able to run the ball effectively with McClure through what their offensive line was doing. And important note about the offensive line was they were missing their star left tackle, Derek Graham, for that first Ole Miss game. And I think that was a huge issue on why the offense wasn't allowed to get any developing plays, because I think Tulane's first string offensive line is very high quality, very high caliber. Derek Graham, future NFL player. Shadre Hurst, for sure a future NFL player, is a 2-time first team all AAC guard. But I don't think the depth under those guys is necessarily as strong. It can hold its own against Ole Miss's defensive front. So I think that's one important thing to note from the first game. But then on the defense, Tulane's they completely took over Northwestern in that opener. They completely took over Duke's offensive line too. They got some dudes on that defensive line, Santana, Hopper, Harvey, Dyson, and they're deep. They rotate guys out. There's not one premier pass rusher like we were just talking Sahir West with James Madison. It's more just a committee approach that Tulane operates with. So they're strong in those trenches.
Yeah, Dyson, double-digit tackles for loss, as well as Sam Howard with 8.5 TFLs, 4 sacks. On the offensive side, they spread it around. They don't throw it a lot. Retzlaff at 62%, but 4 guys with over 30 catches. You know, obviously, based on what I just cited off the top with Tulane playing legitimate opponents, even though they got blown out against Ole Miss, you know, this has much more a look or a feel of a potential competitive game. And of course, Tulane's got a long history against those SEC teams in that area, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, LSU. And they played, besides this game, I'm trying to remember if it was the year before or the year before that, it was a Lane Kiffin Ole Miss team went to Tulane, and that was a heck of a ball game. It was like 20-17 until maybe 4 minutes left when Ole Miss put on some icing on the cake. So this may not necessarily be a joke.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was September 9th, 2023, I believe. And yeah, and the thing was, Tulane had Michael Pratt at that point, and Michael Pratt was actually hurt and missed that game. And Tulane still had a double-digit lead in that game. It was still, I believe, tied going into the fourth quarter of that one. So one-score game until late before Ole Miss pulled ahead. So yeah, Tulane's been competitive before. But I think one really intriguing thing I saw conference championship weekend was how hard it is to beat a team twice. If we're looking at the conference championships, I think 6 out of the 9 of them featured rematches, and 4 times the team that lost the first game won the rematch. There was Alabama, Georgia. Georgia won the rematch. Virginia, Duke, which Virginia crushed Duke that first time around. Then Duke wins that rematch in overtime. Probably shouldn't have even gone to overtime. And Western Michigan, Miami, Ohio was another one of those. And so was Kennesaw State, Jack State. So the teams that actually doubled down with 2 straight victories were Texas Tech over BYU did that, and then Boise State over UNLV. So it is tough to beat a team twice. That's a trend that we see in conference championship weekend a lot. And I think that Tulane would probably rather play Ole Miss and Oregon with some of the familiarity, some of the new wrinkles and improvement that they've added over the year. And also the fact that Ole Miss doesn't have Lane Kiffin on staff, and what kind of chaos can that cause? I know Tulane doesn't really have their coach either, but John Summerall's committed. He's staying through staff with this team for the rest of this run.
You can catch Steve's work at Underdog Dynasty, also Hustle Belt on SB Nation. You can catch it all in an easier way by just going and following Steve, obviously, on X, and then you can track his work from there. Have you made your bowl plans yet?
Yes. Right now, the plan is I will be at the Ole Miss Tulane game. They're putting the media hotel in Memphis. I'm like, where do you fly in to get to Ole Miss? It's Memphis, and then it's just that's 75 miles or something south. So it would be there. Then I'll probably do the Texas Bowl, which is Houston versus LSU. Planning to do another Cotton Bowl. I've done that one a lot before. That will be Ohio State versus the winner of Texas A&M Miami. Should be a fantastic game in Arlington on New Year's Eve. And then just staying in the DFW area for Rice versus Texas State on January 2nd for the Armed Forces Bowl.
4 games lined up for you. Good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Steve, you can always check in. Just let us know, and we'll be tracking you down as well. So appreciate you.
Any bowl game, I'll be watching all of them. So any bowl game you need, I'll be on.
Absolutely. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it. All right. Our guy, Steve Helwick, again, Hustle Belt, Underdog Dynasty. He's been with those outlets for quite a long time. And as you can hear, he's got quite the bowl schedule. He travels every weekend going to like 2 or 3 football games between Thursday and Saturday. All right, let's get to these calls. We appreciate your patience, folks. We got West Quad stopping by.
Hello. I was
hello, sir.
I was just sitting here listening. I want to talk about. Well, I don't know what your position on it.
Yep.
The Alabama inclusion.
Yeah.
Like my whole thing is like I feel like I feel like Notre Dame should have been in. I feel dirty saying that because the hell with Notre
Sure.
Dame.
No doubt.
But it's just like, but also I don't feel bad for Notre Dame because they took their ball and went home.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, all right, dude, like this. What about the seniors? Like, I mean, did they come to that conclusion, or did they all like, or was it like administration? I feel like there had to be an administration thing. So,
I think they're pulling a power play. I think it is too.
Oh no, for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
well, you're not gonna get any money off of me if we if we're not gonna be in the the big dance. So I mean, I understand it, but nah, man. I feel like college football is my favorite sport, and I'm watching it get ruined like daily. Every day I look up and there's a different thing happening. It's like, can we just leave it alone? Can we just max out at 16? Like I know that's coming. But can we just leave it there? I don't want 16. I don't want more than 16 teams in the playoff, personally.
I'm right there with you. 16 is the limit. And I think that's even kind of stretching it, but I would be okay. If you can finish top 16 in the country, you're probably 9-3 or better.
Exactly.
And that's about all I can take there. I am one that abides by the rule, more football is always good, but we're talking about playing for a championship. So it's not like, add as many bowl games as you want. I'll see a bunch of 6-6 teams play bowl games. Great. They're meaningless.
And I'll pick and choose when I love them.
I love them, but they're meaningless. We're talking about you're supposed to have earned a playoff spot by having an excellent season.
Right.
Not just having an okay season.
So my problem with Alabama is the bookending losses. Like you started off the season crappy, you ended it crappy. Yeah, you beat Georgia once in there, but I don't think that makes you deserving of a spot. And I don't think if Alabama was in any other conference with the same resume, did they get that spot. I mean, I know it's the SEC. I get that. They are the premier conference, but that's just not. I don't know, man. It doesn't feel right. And I also feel like let's just say Fox had the college football playoffs.
Yep.
And they let us in with our, and it would have been the same thing. We got blown out in our last game too. Like it's like, oh, Michigan's in. You be like, what?
So let me make the case for Alabama. Okay. So I completely understand where you're coming from. Anybody who watched that game on Saturday night, and watched them mess around with Georgia and just look completely incompetent. And then the week before, they're playing a 5-win Auburn team, and they can barely get off the field with a win. They were actually outplayed in that game. Auburn knows how to lose a game better than anybody in the country. Like they're as talented as almost anybody. They have top 15 talent.
Right.
So they played neck and neck with Alabama, but they handed them the game. And Alabama's not looked good for a month. They have not looked good. Ty Simpson just looks like a completely different guy than he was for the first 3 or 4 games of the SEC season. So from an eyeball standpoint, no doubt, Notre Dame is playing so much better than Alabama right now and has been for a long time.
Right.
If you take it from a resume standpoint, understand, West Squad, that Alabama obviously was forced to play a conference championship game. They were exposed by playing that game.
But Mark, my thing is, if that game is 28-21, then no problem with Alabama. It's the fact that they just look so inept.
Absolutely, they did. Absolutely, they did. But understand that Notre Dame, Miami, Vanderbilt, Texas, all the teams that had a shot to get into the playoffs, none of them had that opportunity. Had to show themselves one more time against not just another team, another game, but like against one of the 3 or 4 best teams in the country.
I don't know. I call myself thinking I know college football sometimes. Like, okay, 2023, that night, I knew Bama was getting in because they were not going to put Florida State in there without their quarterback.
Sure.
Which I understood. But it's like I was bragging to I'm telling my dad, oh, y'all are not in, because he's just an SEC guy. He's not a Bama guy, but he's mostly a Bama guy, but he roots for the entire conference, which I don't understand, but neither here nor there. But I was like, no way do they put them in after that performance. I was just like, it's gonna be Miami, Notre Dame, and then the 2, Tulane and JMU. I was like, there's no way Alabama gets in, and then it happens. I'm like, ew, gross. I feel kind of gross, like feeling bad for Notre Dame, but it's like I just don't see it. But I understand, like I said, the resume, I get it, but just compared to like the eye test between them and Notre Dame, I couldn't.
No, it doesn't seem like it's close right now because Alabama, they've been riding their passing game the whole season. So when Ty Simpson was hot and they were protecting him, it looked great. But now that their offensive line has sprung a leak and he's kind of rattled and not playing well, they don't have a running game. And so they're completely inept on offense.
Not only that, but they gave him a rematch too, which seems unfair because everybody knows that it's hard to beat somebody twice in the same season. So it's like, oh man.
Well, let's not debate that one because I totally get you, and that's what most people think. But history says something slightly different. But anyway, I'm not going to get into that. I'll produce a video sometime and I'll show everybody all the rematches in the history of college football. It's not as decisive as people think it is.
I mean, I think when you have like a decidedly better team, that obviously then it goes down that way. I don't see Alabama winning this game because that running game. I don't unless they find one in these next 2 weeks.
Yeah, they're going to have to run. And that's the reason they lost to Oklahoma the other time. Right. Simpson had a good game. They moved the ball between the 20s. They had about 420 yards of offense, and Oklahoma barely had 200. But you can't, if you're going to dink and doink up and down the field against a team that's that as good as Oklahoma, they can tackle as well as they can and come off the edge. They'd get a couple first downs, get into scoring range, get near the red zone, and then Oklahoma would have somebody fly off the edge and strip sack or cause a deflected, batted ball up in the air for an interception. Their defense is really good. And
trust me, I know. I know from firsthand experience. But
absolutely.
And also 18-year-old Ryan Williams kind of sucked compared to 17-year-old Ryan Williams.
Yeah.
I don't know where his mojo went, but it just I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's some personal problems going on there. And the only reason I speculate on that is because he disappears, meaning like there have been a couple of games this season, nobody thought he was hurt and he didn't play. And then there would be weird things on the internet with posts that he would make. And he seems a bit immature at this point.
Yeah.
And so that's been a problem. But he did show up a little bit against Georgia. They got him in some space a couple times, and it was good to see him after he got no targets against Auburn, at least get into the game and catch a couple balls.
Yeah, I just didn't expect Bernard to look like their default number one this year.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a surprise.
Yep.
But I'm really looking forward to. I mean, I say I'm not gonna watch the games just because but I'm gonna watch the game. I'm like on paper they're not intriguing, but games aren't played on paper. You could have never convinced me that Tulane was gonna beat USC a couple years ago. So
that's right.
I will tune in, but I'm more. I'm definitely watching the Hurricanes and Aggies. That's the one I'm looking forward to. But I think that's one that everybody's looking forward to.
Yeah. Yep. For sure.
And I watched the other. I watched Tulane give it a go, and I watched JMU give it a go. But I don't expect JMU to be able to keep it too close. But Oregon's let us down before, so we'll see.
For sure.
But, thanks for having me, though.
Appreciate you being here, man. Thanks for the call.
Right. And I'll call back in the future.
Definitely do it.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, go Blue.
Have a good night. All right, good stuff there, and we'll keep it going. We got our buddy Robert Howard stopping by. Public college football history debates with Mark is an interesting strategy. It would be more of a mauling if I could remember as well as I used to. I used to have these schedules locked and loaded from like 70 years ago. So it's a little sketchy, but I can pull it together and remember who Alabama and Georgia have played non-conference in the last, 10 or 15 years, but it just takes a minute. Thank you for that, Robert. Appreciate you being here. Robert's been a member here at the Voice of College Football for 4 months. Thank you for that contribution, Robert. Got Jay Scott stopping by to talk some college football with us.
Hey, what's going on, man?
Hey, Jay.
How are
you? I'm good. How you doing?
I'm good. Actually, it's my first time actually hearing about your show. I was sitting here from John and TJ over at the Voice of College Football from Michigan. So
very nice. Very nice.
Judging by what I'm hearing, you're an Alabama fan. Is that correct?
No, I'm not an Alabama fan.
Can I ask who you're a fan of?
Well, I will. Before I tell you that, I will let you know that this channel got started in 2010, and it was several years later that I started the Michigan channel, Ohio State, Miami, et cetera, et cetera. And for years and years and years and years, I didn't tell anyone who I rooted for.
Oh, okay, that's fair.
And hang on just a second, because people know now. But I didn't tell anybody for years and years and years and years. And guess what? Nobody guessed. Nobody could tell. And I wish I would have just kept it a secret, because it was fun to have people try to guess and have people actually get on me as being a blank hater. I'm an Ohio State fan.
Okay, that's fair. Well, hey, man, good.
That's where I grew up.
Good win against Michigan this year for sure. Tough loss in the Big Ten championship. But anyway, I guess I'm not sure if it's a question or a comment, or I don't know. Like, do you like with the whole Notre Dame thing? Like, I understand them being independent equals more money, which equals you figure they could probably do better in NIL to have a team that they probably could always make it to the playoffs.
Yep.
But this year, obviously, big controversy. And if they would have played in like a conference game and would have won it, then they would be in. So do you think that their strategy is smart as far as being independent because they get more money? Or do you think that they should be in a conference because obviously it goes to show that conference championships tend to kind of push you over the line when it comes to making the playoffs now?
So let me ask you this, Jay. How old are you?
37.
All right. So I'm a little older than you. And there was a place in time in which Notre Dame was even more special and separate and set apart than everybody else in college football, even more so. I think they still are, just a little bit, because of this independent status. And they really, really hold on to that.
Are you talking about like the 60s era or like the mid 90s,
like
late 90s?
College football in the late 70s,
Mhm.
and there were like 25 independent teams. Shoot, Florida State, Miami were independents, West Virginia,
Yep.
Penn State. I could go on and on. Syracuse, South Carolina, Louisville, all independents. Maryland, Rutgers, yes, Syracuse. But, Notre Dame was the winningest of all those teams. So there was a certain cachet there. They have lost a lot of cachet. However, they still have the only independent status in the country. We'll forget UConn for a second because nobody cares.
Right.
Notre Dame, the only independent in the country with their own TV contract. Obviously, they were the first school to only have their exclusive TV contract. And then also think of this, Jay. When, regardless of how massive the program is, Texas, Michigan, Ohio State, when they walk into a Big Ten boardroom, they get a vote. They get one vote.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else gets one vote. Northwestern's got a vote. Illinois' got a vote. They got to share. They have to compromise. They don't always get their way.
Yep.
They get a vote. And I'm sure the Ohio State and Michigan side of the room, leaned a lot heavier than the Northwestern Illinois side of the room. But still, Notre Dame can do whatever they want. They can schedule whomever they want. They can just operate their program. They don't have to adhere to conference rules and nod their heads and toe the line and do all those things.
Right.
They love that. They love it from just an attitudinal standpoint, that they can bow out their chest and say, we're different than everyone else. But just nobody likes to be told what to do. And think about this. They don't even belong to the ACC as a football member, and they still get a vote as a football member in the ACC.
That was going to be my next question, actually, too, was like if they were to join a conference. I mean, honestly, in the Big Ten, if they're to play in the Big Ten, I mean, you're not guaranteed a 11-1, 10-2, 9-3 schedule every year because you play a lot better competition. And that would be the conference I would think that they would probably join if they were to join, would be the ACC, because they could probably
stay
on top of that every single year and, probably win their championship game and be guaranteed a college football playoff. But I guess my question is, like, are they smart for being independent? Because obviously you schedule your games years in advance. And I understand that they make a lot of money, a lot more money than anybody else does when it comes to, their TV broadcasts, which probably a lot of that should go to NIL.
I'm not sure about that, but go
You
ahead.
don't think so?
The
go
Big
ahead.
Ten cut right now is $90 million per team. And from what I've heard, I don't think Notre Dame's quite pulling that, but I'm not positive on that. I'd have to do some research on that.
I thought I heard that they're making about another $10 million on top of that from being independent.
But $10 million to a university like that, I don't think is much. But you may be
it's
right.
Not much, but sure. I mean, $10 million for NIL these days is pretty important.
So the problem, in my estimation, is not with Notre Dame. It's like trying to handle a 5-year-old. That if they misbehave in the grocery store, it's not their problem. It's not their fault. They're a 5-year-old. They need to be disciplined. The grown-up is the problem. In this situation, we don't have any grown-ups because we don't have a commissioner. We do not have a governing body to sanction the sport. So Notre Dame, just like the conferences, are left to their own devices to do whatever's best for them. So Notre Dame's going to do what's best for them. The entire time I was growing up watching college football, Notre Dame's ties, aside from USC, were in the Big Ten. Michigan, Michigan State, Purdue, they were playing those games every year. So, and obviously based on where they're located, and also the old style tradition of the Big Ten being the oldest conference, they're a perfect fit in the Big Ten in football.
They would be for sure, but they're not guaranteed anything in the Big Ten.
Yeah, and as you mentioned here, I believe 2015 was the first year they ushered in this contract with the ACC, and obviously all their other sports are in the ACC.
Yep.
And the ACC, not being a self-respecting conference, would sign a school to play in every sport in the conference and abuse them, but just use them as part of a football, scheduling partner. It's completely pathetic. So they're already contractually tied to the ACC. So I would expect them to stay there.
Just not for football. That's just very, very strange that they're just independent for football, which obviously costs them a chance to be in the playoffs this year. You know what I mean? For football.
Yeah, it did.
Because honestly, I mean, with the whole thing about this whole, college football playoffs and all the 12 best teams got to play. It's like, well, Notre Dame is 10-2. Like, Oregon's playing James freaking Madison. Like, in what universe are they ever going to freaking be? Like, okay, so like NCAA play, NCAA tournament, you get a 15 or a 14 seed that wins every so often here and there, usually every year, whatever. But in college football, it's just never going to happen. You might get one team one time in a decade, like number 12 will beat a 5. But we want the best teams to be playing against each other. In what world does James Madison beat any of the top 20 teams in the nation? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of upsetting to not see the best teams actually play. Like, I don't know why the Sun Belt and the Mountain West even get even a chance to even really play. Like, make a separate bracket for like tier 2 D1 schools to play, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, Notre Dame, Oregon would be a way better game than James Madison, Oregon. Oregon's going to beat the brakes off them.
We have never seen Notre Dame and Oregon play. You're right. Tons of,
and then you got Tulane and Ole Miss playing. Like, come on, like, what are we talking about here? Tulane versus Ole Miss. I mean, I don't know. It's a little sad.
Well, the only way I can size that up for you would be that it depends on what your objective is, and yours is very clear. You want to see the 12 best teams in the country.
Correct.
And so that's what most people, I think if we took a poll based on what I'm hearing from everyone,
it'd be 90-10 probably.
Yes, 90-10. I want the 12 best teams in the country. Therefore, pitch JMU, pitch Tulane, and we want to see Notre Dame and whoever, Texas, BYU, somebody else, Vanderbilt, whoever the 12th team is. And we want to see those games played. That's an obvious approach. The other one would be a little nuanced. It's okay. This is more collegial. This is more understanding that the group of five contributes to the sport. They make up about 20 or 25% of power conference teams' schedules are against group of five teams. They make up about half of the FBS. So much like now that this has become a tournament, it almost gets compared at times to the men's basketball tournament in March. So why not have a Cinderella? Now we've got two of them because we had the ACC botch things up.
Right.
Well, two Cinderellas. So I'm not saying that either one's right or wrong. I'm just saying those are two preferences. And some people still would like to see the Cinderella story. And even though will get blown out 90% of the time,
it'll never happen. There'll be maybe one team for one game, then the next game they're going to get blown out. I guess my thing is like, what do we actually rank it on? Is it the end of year rankings? Is it strength of schedule? Is it the wins and losses?
On?
Like James Madison getting in, like they don't have like their strength of schedule is not even close to a Notre Dame or BYU or Texas, you know.
Oh, like, so you're asking me how the teams are selected?
Well, no, I understand how they are based on their conference championships and blah blah blah.
That's how they were selected.
But James Madison's strength of schedule has to be what, like,
doesn't matter.
Like 200 or something. I mean,
it doesn't matter if their strength of schedule is the worst in the country or anything.
Exactly.
Nothing matters. You just answered your own question. They made it because they won a conference.
It's just ridiculous, though.
There are 5 conference champions that make the field automatically. Yeah.
They play what? Old Dominion, and who else do they play?
Exactly. we could go through the schedule. Sure.
It's just upsetting that. I mean, every underdog has to have a story and a possibility for a chance to win something someday. But I mean, just those teams are never going to ever win, and it's never going to happen.
I'm going to show you the bright side, Jay. You want to know the bright side, and everybody else that is pissed off about James Madison and.
Hey man, I'm from Michigan. I'm Mr. Brightside. Okay.
Okay. Here's the bright side. The bright side is that starting last season in 2024. This is the best college football championship tournament that we've ever seen, meaning we've never gotten to see they're not the 12 best teams in the country, but the 10 best teams in the country play each other to determine the championship. So for as screwed up as this system is and flawed, it's better than any other system we've ever had in the history of college football. At least the 10 best teams are going to be on the same field playing each other in a tournament to determine the champion. That's never happened before last year.
Mean, to be fair, I mean, looking at, all the teams that are in or out, I would agree with all that, except for not having Notre Dame in there is kind of an insult to them. And that kind of goes back to my first question. Like, honestly, they kind of screwed themselves over on this for not being in a conference, because they would give themselves a chance to have that extra 11th win. And then they're in, Bama's out, guaranteed. But I guess that's my question. Another thing, though, too, it's like, how does the 10-3 Bama team get in and not the 10-2 Notre Dame team get in when Bama got blown the hell out in their conference game? Okay. Like, is that should that or should that not matter? Conference games.
It should matter, but
then you got to look at the big picture. Then a 10-3,
the big
Bama
picture
got blown out.
Has a better resume than Notre Dame does.
I mean, I'm on the border with that one.
I'm not saying they're a better football team.
Right.
Better resume. They
better resume. Wins.
Georgia, 12-1. Oklahoma,
they beat them. Yeah, they beat them.
Yes. Yeah. Georgia, 12-1. Oklahoma, 10-2. Vanderbilt, 10-2. That's 3 of the top 13 teams in the country. Plus Missouri, 8-4. Tennessee, 8-4. 2 of the other top 25 teams in the country. LSU, 7-5. Not a great team, but still, they're a top 30 or 35 team in the country. Notre Dame has nothing close to that string of wins. I'm not saying, now don't confuse this in me saying that Alabama is better than Notre Dame. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that they have better
for sure. I understand that.
Yep. So.
All right, man. Hey, good talk, good conversation.
Yeah, appreciate you being here.
Yeah, man, not a problem. I'll definitely check in some other time for sure.
Check us out anytime. Thanks, Jay.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Mark.
You too. Thanks. All right, folks. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. We do this each and every night during the college football season, 10 p.m. Eastern time. And we appreciate you being here. Thank you for the Super Chat contributions, folks. And we'll be back, let's see, Wednesday. I believe that we had our Ohio State show unfortunately moved, but I have not been able to tie up the loose ends on that. So typically Ohio State Live Wednesday at 11 a.m., but I believe that needs to move. You will see me do the Miami show at 7 p.m. Eastern time and also back here at 10, and we will see you then.